tissue, because liver and gallbladder is pretty short. Alright, so this is our esophagus here. Okay, so this is our scanning view. So just to remind you guys of the different layers that we have in our GI system. Alright, so remember the outermost layer, that's your mucosa, and that consists of your epithelium. You might have a little bit of connective tissue underneath. That's your lamina propria, and if you see a thin layer of muscle here, that's your muscularis mucosa. So all of that makes up your mucosa. Below the mucosa, you have your submucosa, which is pretty much a layer of connective tissue. And in the esophagus, that's where you find your esophageal glands. Then you have your muscularis externa, which is usually a pretty thick piece of muscle. And then you have your serosa or your adventitia, which is, you can have a little bit of connective tissue, probably some adipose, a few blood vessels and all that in the serosa and the adventitia. So the serosa, if it contains a simple squamous lining, then it's called a serosa. If it doesn't have that, it's called an adventitia. Alright, so remember you have some organs that are, their surface is towards the peritoneal cavity, so they're going to have that simple squamous covering. If the connective tissue on the outside, if it's continuous with the surrounding connective tissue, then when you pull the organ out, then you pretty much just have that little piece of connective tissue at the end, so it's called an adventitia. Alright, so our esophagus has this stratified squamous epithelium. So once we see that, we know that's probably our esophagus, and then we have what are called our esophageal glands proper. Alright, so we have a few of them here. Alright, so we have these glands that are found within the submucosa. Those are your esophageal glands. So this is our epithelium here, stratified squamous. So once you see a stratified squamous epithelium and you see glands within the submucosa, you know that's your esophagus. Alright, remember we said with the muscularis externa, with the esophagus, in the upper 1/3 of the esophagus, is it going to have skeletal or smooth muscle? Right, it's going to have skeletal muscle. As you move down to the lower 2/3, then you're going to have a little bit of a mixture. So you'll have both skeletal and smooth. And then as you go towards the stomach, then it's pretty much just smooth muscle in the muscularis externa. I was about to say submucosa.
I was going to help thing.
Alright, so the two of the other structures that you're supposed to identify are the nerve plexus. Alright, so your nerve plexus pretty much is just your, you're looking for nerve bundles. So remember when we looked at our ganglia and we had our parasympathetic ganglia. So pretty much what you're looking for are parasympathetic ganglia either in the submucosa or in the muscularis externa. Alright, so with the muscularis externa, you're looking for them between the layers of muscle. So notice here the muscle is cut. The first layer of muscle, it's a circular layer of muscle. So when you do a cross section, the muscle layers, you have this longitudinal section here. The outer layer, that's a longitudinal section. So when you cut it, it appears in cross section. Alright, so usually you're looking between those two layers there, and what we're looking for are the large eyeballs that we saw with the parasympathetic ganglia. Alright, so if you see those in between those layers of muscles, then we know that's our back plexus. Alright, I think let's see. Alright, so we have, that looks like cell bodies. I have a better slide, so I'll show you afterwards. Alright, but you're pretty much just looking for cell bodies within the Digestive Two here. Alright, but the location is pretty much the most important thing. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice little. Alright. So if we're seeing some cell bodies, close to these nerve bundles, then we know that's our axis. This is probably here. They're not that well. Okay. Alright, so this is our esophagus here. And if we look at the end here, pretty much we have some connective tissue. We're not really seeing a simple squamous lining here. So if you don't see that, then that's your adventitia. Oh, no, we do. I thought I saw it.
Is that esophagus?
Alright, so some of this, yeah,
Isn't it pretty much going when we pull it out?
Alright, so we're not really seeing the simple squamous lining here, so this would be our adventitia. Alright, if you do see a simple squamous lining, then that's going to be your serosa. Alright, so that was the esophagus.
If you were to ask for adventitia or serosa on the exam, would it be one where the simple squamous epithelium could have been pulled away and it's still out there, or would it be?
No, I would show you one where it's still connected, so that you could see that it definitely has simple squamous. Because when it's pulled away, sometimes it's hard. Like something like this, you can definitely see that there's a simple squamous lining here. So that would be a serosa. Alright, so I'll show you something like that for the exam. Alright, so this is our esophagus again. Alright, so moving from the esophagus to the stomach, you're going to see a transition in your epithelium. So here we have our stratified squamous epithelium. We can see our esophageal glands. But as we move into the stomach, we're going to see a transition from the stratified squamous into the epithelium of the stomach, which is a simple columnar epithelium. Alright, so this region of the stomach, that's pretty much the first part. So this would be our cardiac stomach. Alright, so we have the cardiac stomach, most of the stomach, which is called the body of the stomach, that's the fundus or the fundic stomach. So that would be like the middle region, and then the end that's closer to your duodenum, that's your pyloric stomach. Alright, so pretty much once you see that transition from the esophagus, from the stratified squamous epithelium into that simple columnar epithelium, then you know that that's your cardiac stomach. Alright, so we don't have power. Alright, so we have the simple squamous